The Babylon Project was our last best hope for sci-fi, a self-contained podcast 1 hour long located on the internet, a place of fun and discussion for Babylon 5 fans everywhere, a shining beacon in cyberspace, all alone in the night. It was the dawn of the 20th anniversary of Babylon 5, the year the Great War to free Bab 5 came upon us all. This is the story of the last of the Babylon podcast. The year is 2016. The name of the place is the Babylon Project Podcast.
This is Maggie Egan, your ISN news anchor, and you're listening to the Babylon Project podcast.
Hello there, Babylon 5 fans. This is Raul Wybera with my good friend Jim Arrowwood for another wonderful episode of the Babylon Project podcast.
Yeah.
How are you tonight, my friend?
I'm great. Greetings from central Nebraska.
And Edwardsville, Illinois. We're a suburb of Chicago. At least that's how Chicago considers us. Aside from the fact that we're 450 miles south.
Ah.
Yeah, anything downstate's just a suburb.
There you go.
Anyway. Well, sir, what episode are we talking to tonight?
Second season episode number 17 called Knives.
Well, except that it was supposed to be number 16, apparently.
Yeah.
Zahadum was supposed to be first. But anyway, Knives, that's, well, the knives were a little on the larger side, but an interesting episode.
Yeah, I know. I really enjoyed this one. I really like Urza. He's cool.
Oh, yes. We'll get to him later. Let's just say, next to Turan, he really represents the best of the Centauri.
Yes, absolutely he does.
I wouldn't call this a big arc episode, on the one hand.
No, not really. I don't know. It gives us some more insight into Londo.
Oh, yeah. And it stands alone, but it does connect to the big story, because a huge part of it is all about Londo learning a bit of the price for his actions, at least his first confrontation of that.
Yeah, he's going to definitely have some regrets here.
Well, how about a summary to get us grounded and to refresh my memory on what we'll be discussing?
Okay.
And our listeners.
Yes, here we go.
Archive. Access. Initiated.
Londo's longtime friend, Urza Jado, arrives for a visit to the station. Urza explains to Londo that he has been charged with treason and is to be executed and his family dishonored. Believing that he can set things right, Londo contacts Lord Rifa on Centauri Prime to ask that Urza's name be cleared, but Rifa refuses. Urza explains that it was Rifa who actually brought accusations against him, which ties Londo's hands and prevents him from further intervening. Urza then challenges Londo to the Morargo, a duel to the death. Londo knows that he cannot refuse the duel, or he and his family will be dishonored. Londo wins the duel and becomes responsible for Urza's family as outlined in the rules of the Morargo. While Sheridan is exploring the gray sector of the station known as the Babylon 5 Triangle, he comes upon a dead Marcab that passes some sort of energy discharge to Sheridan. After experiencing a series of visions, Sheridan realizes that he has been possessed by some sort of non-corporeal life form. When Sheridan further realizes that the life form has been accidentally brought to the station from Sector 14, he takes a Star Fury and returns the alien entity to the region. Well, there it is.
Well, you're right. There it is.
Character, files, open.
In our guest cast, we have...
Can I ask
Sure.
to take them in reverse order?
Okay. So, under featuring, we have William Dennis Hunt, who plays a Centauri noble that Londo talks to very briefly.
Right.
He was in an episode of Deep Space Nine as a Klingon warrior who informs Worf of happenings back on the homeworld, and was also in Men in Black TV series. Of course, we're all familiar with William Forward, who plays Rifa.
Right.
Okay.
And he's more of a, hey, here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not personally there. He's brought in through communication, visual communication with Londo. And our headliner is Carmen, I hope I can say this right, Carmen Argenziano.
Carmen Argenziano,
yes, as
Urza Jado.
He's got credits dating back all the way to 1969.
Yep.
He was in The Man Who Fell to Earth in 1987. Several appearances in Stargate SG-1 and a movie called Meteor from 2009.
I haven't seen Meteor. Oh, and don't forget, and this is where I kind of remembered him from. He was in an episode of A-Team. Okay. And I can see him in that sort of general, military role, certainly. Yeah. I guess, especially when you consider his role in SG-1. Now, you said you had not watched SG-1?
I have never seen SG-1, no.
Right. He plays Sam Carter's dad.
Okay.
In SG-1. So his showing up there, I mean, he's in like 20-something episodes of SG-1. Yeah. So it's Jacob Carter. So he plays next to Amanda Tapping in SG-1 in that regard. And he's also Selmac, which is the symbiote that, oh gosh, this is going to get complicated. If you haven't watched just SG-1, the Tok'ra are symbiotes. They inhabit humans and give them health, long life, all kinds of goodies. And Sam's dad is dying, and he takes on a symbiote. So it's a great character. It really is a great character. And I've said before, if you didn't like the movie, you really need to watch the series because it's a whole different animal.
Well, one of these days I may have time after I retire.
Yeah.
So let's get on with this, talking about this episode.
Yeah, batter up.
Initiating plot analysis.
Sheridan and Mike are sort of de-stressing.
They're taking some batting practice. And it looks like a lot of fun, really.
Yeah, though you notice all the fouls that Mike was getting.
Yeah. Something that kind of made me a little apprehensive is how they were standing in such proximity to each other, hitting real baseballs. I mean, a foul ball can really go in any direction.
Yeah. That's probably a level of confidence in each other there.
Ugh. I wouldn't stand that close. I don't care if it was Mickey Mantle.
Of course, I think they did play together on the BAB5 softball team, too. So, yeah. While they're batting, they're talking about the Babylon 5 triangle.
Yeah, things disappear.
And people.
Yes, and strange things happen.
So, of course, Sheridan, he's weird that way, has to go and look.
Yeah, alone.
Of course.
Yeah, he's going to go alone.
Well, that's the whole point, as he puts it.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
next scene is...
I was going to say, this is actually the B story, because as you were segueing to us, the next scene.
we get Veer and Londo stepping off of a lift.
Can I?
No.
Can I?
No.
Please?
No, Rudder said he's going to resign if you sing.
Okay, how about the clip at least?
Okay, that I can manage.
All right.
No, Veer. You can't even begin to compare the compositions of Centauri with those of Dorva.
Londo, Dorva is fine.
Fine. The man was a giant of Centauri opera. His opening aria for Trovale Toccata. Please, this is one of the most brilliant, soul-stirring piece of music ever written. Bum bum, cora, tiano, mi torva carpa andare, mestatan di vol.
That's very commendable, Londo, and you sing it quite well. But it cannot stand beside Centauro's Mi Grivataro. Mi la crossa vizima, ti vai magri soledad, ti maya dara vizima.
Aia vita, l'estero vigri. They don't write them like that anymore.
How fitting you should die with a song on your lips, Molari.
You know, that
nice
opera...
touch there.
That opera could have been Rossini.
Yeah, you tell me about it. That's what I was... Actually, one of the things I was going to ask you, I forgot to ask my wife, and at least she's not going to kill me for skipping over that. But was that actually taken from Rossini or any other actual opera? Or was this... Do you know if these were just pieces strung together to make this clip?
I think somebody must have composed that based on the height of the early Romantic composers.
Yeah, because there's nothing on it in the Lurker's Guide.
Yeah, late classical, early Romantic. I don't recognize it, but that doesn't mean anything. Opera's not really my thing.
Yeah, same here. I love listening to it, but as far as some of the specific details of it, I mean, it's brilliantly written, musically at least, for such a short excerpt. But
it's just different enough to not sound like a human opera, though, in my mind, anyway.
Just enough, yeah.
Yeah.
But the surprise at the end, yeah.
Molari, you're going to die with a song on your lips.
With a hood over his head and arm across Londo's throat.
Yeah.
And refers to him as Paso Learte. This turns out to be Urza, one of Londo's oldest friends.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, that hood sure made a mess out of his hair, didn't
it? Yeah. But that said, like I said earlier, Urza is really sort of the best of the Molari. I mean, he represents the most noble.
That's a hell of a way to say hello, though.
Yeah. Now we're going to get a contrast. You put someone in like that, you can expect to see him used to make a point, and we'll definitely be getting to that. In the meantime, we have Sheridan spelunking in the lost edges of Down Below.
Yes, he's all alone, which I don't think is very wise, especially with that spooky music going on in the background.
Yep, you would think once he heard the music, he would have known to get out of there.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, they score after they shoot the scenes,
Yep.
so he probably didn't know that.
You mean the music isn't playing through Down Below? I mean, the overhead speakers, and you've ruined it for me now.
That's going to bring up a whole nother joke. We're not going to do that. At any rate, he finds a presumably dead Marcab laying on the floor.
Yep. Or a Walking Dead Marcab has his mate, or at least sitting dead.
Yeah, it reaches up and grabs him right by the face.
Well, think of it this way. This guy's just sort of getting ahead of the rest, but sorry, I couldn't skip that one. Well, you've got Franklin saying the zombie has gas, so I mean that's not sensitive either.
Well, I've heard stories of people in morgues and corpses sitting up and things like that. I have never experienced that myself, but I suppose it is possible. But this looked, from the scene, it looked like it was on purpose.
Yeah, at least it was not an accident. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So Sheridan, following up on this, seems like he is seeing spots.
Yeah, some kind of an aura, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And taking it to a whole new level.
That would be kind of scary. That reminds me of having a migraine.
Yeah.
On steroids.
And with him sitting there in med lab, I sure as heck wouldn't be just brushing something that extreme off the way he does at first.
Yep.
But continuing back to Londo, it turns out that Londo and Urzo aren't just old friends, that their houses have been lined since the earliest days of history.
Well, yeah, it sounds like the two of them also grew up together and trained in the art of dueling.
Right, yeah. The Centauri still had dueling societies, and I love the namings. Paso Leati, I love the fighting names. Paso Leati, Craze Leati. What is the Leati? Anyone know? But Sculptura is the silent beast, and apparently that must probably reflects how they fight.
Yeah. Paso Leati is a crazed Leart, which I just kind of assume that it would be some kind of a cat of some kind.
Yeah, I almost think like badger-like. You know what I mean? Because those are nasty. Those are nasty critters.
Yeah. So, but anyway, we see that both of these gentlemen come from a more honorable, perhaps more civilized time.
Indeed. And that's where we start to see, that's where we'll start to see the contrast as we progress further into the story. But they have a drink, and let me say, those are big goblets.
Oh, they got to be quart, at least, quart-sized.
I have drank beer in Belgium where if you get the large, and it's a half-liter goblet, and I thought those were big. This dwarfs those.
They have some big cups. They're very ornate. And did you also notice that they did not stop drinking and start again? They just held them up there.
Yeah, two hands, glug, glug, glug. Oh, Valtu.
Yeah, last time we hear that in the series.
The first time we heard it's still one of my favorite scenes out of the series.
Yeah, stunning in purple.
Yep. And I love the comment to Veer about his negative personality. Oh, gosh.
Well, he is, after all, a moon-faced assassin of joy.
Yeah. Oh, my. Wow. Back to Sheridan.
Yeah, he's taking a snooze.
And shooting a wall.
Yeah, we get more of that spooky music. There's some kind of winged creature after him, or so he thinks.
Right. And
some kind of turns out to be a hallucination because he blew a decoration away on his wall or something.
And Garibaldi just conveniently happened to be standing right outside his door.
Yep, Garibaldi is a big time saver.
Yep. Well, actually, he was on his way with a forensic report.
Oh.
So
apparently he was attacked by something he calls a Graylar from Janor 7.
Yeah, in his past.
And these are old memories coming to life, apparently.
And, well, we possibly have our first connection with the Marcab because, according to that forensic report, the Marcab's death was a suicide. He very literally bashed his own brains out.
Yeah.
So something was certainly going on in his head.
Yeah, something weird. I mean, gosh darn, can you imagine?
Oh,
What would drive a person? Well,
my day at work today.
well, see, that's why I tell the kids, when they say something dumb, I'll go over and bang my head against the chalkboard. They say, "Why do you do that, Mr. Arrowwood?" And I say, "Well, because it feels so good when I stop."
Oh, gosh. Well, we switched from there back to Londo.
A lot of switching back and forth in this episode.
Londo's feeling good.
Yeah.
Good enough that they're talking about love and politics.
Two subjects that, yeah, wow.
Uh-huh.
You have to be drunk in order to talk about them together.
Yeah. And it seems that Londo's on the rise in the Republic.
Yeah, his star is rising,
Mhm.
thanks to the shadows.
And Urza, it seems, is not exactly rising. He's kind of causing some problems by questioning the Narn War.
Well, he sees no sense in it. There's just nothing, there's no reason for it.
Yeah, and it's bad enough he's about to be declared traitor.
Yeah, when actually Urza is one of the last of the honorable Centauri that we get to see.
Right. You definitely see some look of shock on Londo
Mm-hmm.
for a real reason. I mean, guess whose fault this is? But Londo promises to help save his family. He says he's got some connections.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah, we know about Londo's connections.
Now, was it just me, and we'll get more into this in a little more depth, but it almost sounds like Urza's saying goodbye at this point.
Well, I think we get a little more insight to that later on.
I mean, it's never really made clear, but
Yeah, he is definitely trying to seems like he's trying to wrap up personal business and get it taken care of.
Yeah. Susan is worried.
Oh?
Yes. Well, she only worries, it seems, when things are going well.
Yeah.
And since she didn't say it this episode, in fact, she hasn't said it yet this season, I'll go ahead and say it. How Russian of her.
Well, yeah, either that or she has a great deal of stock being placed in Murphy's Law.
Yeah. Well, Sheridan has another one of his hallucinations. He sees the Icarus blowing up.
Yeah. And perhaps attributed to stress?
Or
I don't know.
Something picked up off the Marcab, or is he just cracking up?
Yeah.
And,
well, and the thing of it is he doesn't seem particularly stressed.
No, he doesn't.
He's got what's happening to him is going to cause him some.
Yeah.
Because he's definitely hallucinating.
Now, this piece here is part of the reason why this originally was supposed to come before the Zahadum episode. Because here's where we were supposed to first see the Icarus and have some sort of identification with it. But and then we would come again when he's reviewing the personnel on the Icarus, and then Kosh shows him the Icarus and what's going on. But it still works fine this way, obviously.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt the continuity at all.
Right.
I don't think they would have released it differently if it would have hurt the continuity.
No, and it was because just delays in post because of all the work in the Zahadum I'm sorry, not the Zahadum, but all the work in this episode. It just got backlogged in post, so this was a good spot to flip. Well, Franklin going over the possibilities with Sheridan. Well, yeah, he can see where it might be something he picked up from the Marcab, but most likely says that he's just stressed out and orders him on a vacation and gives him a Apple Watch.
Yeah, and then he heads straight down to do some more batting practice.
Yeah.
I would buy it. I would buy that he is stressed, except for the the aura that he's seeing before he sees these hallucinations.
I agree with that one. I agree with that completely.
And not a lot was mentioned about that.
No, I think that was just, well, that, for obviously that's just what we were seeing supposedly, or we were seeing what Sheridan was seeing, I guess is a better way of putting that.
Yeah.
Well,
So we switch back over to Londo, who is appealing to Rifa on Urzo's behalf.
yeah. And unfortunately, it turns out Rifa is the source of the resolution.
Yeah, the resolution that's condemning Urzo or Urza. What a loser this guy is.
Yeah. We're on the 1 to 10 creepy scale. He's an 11. I tell you what, though, one of the things that really, this is a guy that just doesn't get it as far as his presumptiveness. Londo has taken out whole worlds for them.
Yeah.
And Rifa has the cojones to dictate to Londo what will be.
Well, Rifa does not have any inkling of the power that Londo wields.
You would, at least not yet, but you would think he would still, with the kind of military victories that he's handed them, that he's said, Rifa himself has said, there's no way we could do this. And Londo's just, trust me, it's taken care of.
Well, you might say that he's blinded by ambition.
That is probably the best answer I've heard for that irritation of mine.
Yeah.
It's nagged me for years, and I think you've probably got it. It's just blinded by ambition.
Yeah. Now, Veer, Londo has let Rifa know
Make it happen.
This is not acceptable, and it needs to be taken care of rapidly, and signs off. I love Veer's line.
Mm-hmm.
I am proud of you on rare occasions.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a classic Veer line.
The rare occasions thing just cracks me up.
Well, back at batting practice.
Yeah.
3 hours of batting practice.
Yeah, which is, I said before, batting practice looked like fun. It's too much fun. It's no longer fun.
Yeah. That's more like working out frustrations.
Now he looks like he's stressed.
You got it. Boy, have you got it. Well, Garibaldi shows up and chit-chats with him about the dead Markab, and it seems he was passing through Sector 14. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, just slightly. Babylon 4.
You got it. Which has been declared a quarantine area.
Yeah, and Sheridan doesn't know a great deal about that.
No, that's because Earth Force confiscated all the records.
However, Mike, in his infinite resourcefulness, you just gotta love this guy, made a copy of the records.
Of course, that's what I do.
Yeah? Well, don't we all make backups?
Well, actually, most people I've learned from my years working on the computer science side of my day job seem not to.
Well, then we all should make backups.
Yes, you learned that, I think.
Yeah, well, I get bit every now and then.
I tend to go for triple redundancy. But yeah, Sheridan is about to get educated on Babylon 4.
Yeah.
So where do we go next?
Well, we join a party.
All nobles.
Yeah, a lot of Centauri nobles. And did you notice Veer in the background?
At the Centauri party?
Yes.
No, what?
Oh, one of the neat things that I like about this show is things that go on behind the scenes. Okay, so you've got Urza and Londo are talking, and they're moving through this crowd, and all of a sudden this scantily clad dancing girl gets up and starts dancing, and Veer just kind of peels off.
Oh gosh,
in the background, and he's talking to her. Urza and Londo don't miss a beat, and then all of a sudden, Veer realizes that he's getting left behind, so he turns around and runs back up. You gotta watch.
I gotta
what's
rewatch
going
that
on.
one. I have to rewatch it. Oh,
you have to rewatch. You have to watch everything that's going on in this show because
as many times as I've watched this, I have never noticed that.
Yeah, Fringe did stuff like that.
All the time. You've got to watch. Well, you've just got to watch what Walter Bishop is doing in the background, because John Noble is always ad-libbing something going on in back.
Yeah, I remember one scene in particular. It was a second season. Maybe he was pouring coffee from one cup to another while there was a serious conversation going on.
Exactly. Oh gosh.
So Urza already knows about the resolutions. Yeah, he already knows about it.
And it seems that Reef is the cause of the problems.
Right. Yeah. And Urza wants nothing to do with the kind of republic that is coming up.
That Rifa is creating. Yeah. And he's not pleased to hear that Londo's involved with Rifa.
Right. And I think Londo's in too deep to see it. You know, Londo may also be a bit blinded by ambition. His star is rising. He's at the command at this time of a lot of power.
Right. And it turned, one of the things that comes out, Urza was a supporter of Turan, and he had brought a gift for Londo, a Centauri, which looks an awful lot like what we would call a gladius.
Right.
The Roman stabbing sword.
Looked, well, anyway, this is a good time to talk about Urza, or at least listen to Urza and understand this, this honorable person who is just got everybody against him.
And by the way, you notice it was convenient that he brought a sword.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and let's hear what you've got.
Quite an impressive array of guests. Nobles, everyone,
They are friends. And when I announce our alliance against those who seek to dishonor my house and our republic, they will make sure word is spread throughout the court.
It will not be necessary. I've taken care of it.
What do you mean?
Well, you've asked for my help. I've given it. No charges will be made against you or your house.
The resolution has already been brought before the Centauri, and my sources assure me it will pass.
Well, that's not possible. Lord Rifa promised.
Rifa? What do you have to do with him?
He is a friend, a man of great influence. With his help,
I will get no help from that assassin. It was he who had the resolution brought before the Centauri.
You must be mistaken.
Knowledge is a basic tool of politics. Mine is considerable. But I never dreamed it would be a part of his schemes. Why, Londo?
I have a destiny to fulfill. One which will take our people back to a golden age. We are Centauri, Urza. We are meant to conquer, to rule, to build empires. You, the hero of Gorash, should know that.
I am an old hero. And what I saw and did at Gorash still haunts me in the night. I do not want to return to that kind of glory, Londo.
You listen to me, Urza. No one can stop this. A new day is coming to our people. A great day. And I can help you be a part of it.
You cannot build an empire based on slaughter and deceit. Turhan knew that. I thought you did too.
Perhaps it is best that I go.
No, you cannot go yet. I have a gift for you.
So, yeah, Londo, he can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah. And
Ursa has seen enough in his life that he doesn't want repeats of it.
mm-hmm.
And he believed that Turhan had the right idea. Let's bury the hatchet. Let's get it done and over with and move forward. But nobody behind him wanted to do that. They wanted war.
And I think actually at one point Londo got it.
Yeah, I think so, but no longer.
No, definitely not any longer. Now,
No, he's got a whole new agenda.
here's where what was going on in Ursa's head comes up. Londo star is rising. Ursa talks about how he's got ears everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I find it almost impossible to believe that Ursa isn't aware of a connection between Londo and Rifa.
Okay, that makes sense.
Was this conversation, and this conversation, remember, it happened right before he was presented with the sword. Was this conversation really as much of Urza coming to Londo for help, or of Urza trying to dissuade Londo from the course, the disastrous course that he sees him and the Centauri Republic headed upon?
Well, and that second case would be something that I would consider. Urza looked thoroughly disgusted.
He looked disgusted, but not surprised.
As soon as Londo mentioned Rifa's name, Urza's entire personality changed, and it's like, you scumbag. How can you deal with this guy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we get more hints of because Urza still gives him the gift of the sword, and then immediately challenges him to the Morago, the duel to the death.
Yeah, that was out of left field.
Londo's line in this, I mean, it could be the automatic ritual response, or it could be to some degree Londo understanding what Urza's doing, because he accepts in, and I quote, the spirit they were offered.
Okay.
I mean, just all of this makes me wonder, like, does Urza clearly knows what he's doing.
Oh, yeah. We figure that out later.
So was he trying to sort of save Londo? Because if Londo had been persuaded with all of the nobles there, I mean, Urza's comment is right, that they could have changed the course of the Centauri Republic.
Yeah.
Now, what they don't know is because of the shadows, Londo would have probably been rather promptly killed and replaced, but yeah.
Very likely.
Anyway, yeah, he seems to be figuring it out.
Well, he's figuring something out.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's not telling anyone else what it is, including us, as in the audience.
Yeah, you can definitely, though, see the light bulb go on over his head.
And you had mentioned a lot of cuts back and forth. Well, cut back now to Londo and Veer arguing.
So what else is new?
Yeah, Veer doesn't seem to like the idea of Londo getting killed or killing someone else.
No. But, this is a matter of honor. Londo has been challenged. What little honor Londo has left, anyway, at this point. I know I'm sounding like I don't like Londo, but that is not the case. I love this.
Oh, no, I wasn't taking it. I wasn't taking it at that. The fact that...
Well, hopefully our listeners aren't taking it that way either. I love this character.
Yeah,
I really do.
This is really kind of laying out another perspective of the tragedy, and we'll get to that toward the end here. But that challenge was made to one of the few things that Londo truly holds dear, the old Republic. So it's almost impossible. There's no way he would possibly say no to that.
No,
and
of course not.
Again, I think he knows to some degree. I think he has an idea of what Urza is actually doing.
Okay, well, perhaps. I didn't catch that, but
yeah. Well,
who knows?
Cut back to Sheridan. Actually, let's not cut back to Sheridan because Sheridan's missing.
Yeah.
He's borrowing a Star Fury.
Yeah. Yep. And Mike's right behind him.
Yep. And you'll notice there. Now, this is a case where I kind of wish we almost had gotten a sound clip. But it's okay that we didn't. You notice how quickly that party was able to convert itself to a dueling ring.
Yeah.
And that whole speech between Londo and Urza as the fight begins, it just sounds to me like there's a lot of coded speech going on between the two.
Yeah. I saw you wrote that in your notes, and it sounded straightforward to me, as I recall.
It's straightforward, but it's in the context, and this was just one of the things that kind of like I said, that it just sort of popped into my head as I was watching it, and it kind of I forget about it, and then the next time I watch the series, it pops into my head like a new idea almost every time. So I went ahead and brought it up here. And this here coded
Okay.
this here conversation is really, if not already knowing what's going on, at least it's starting to dawn on him. Come back to Sheridan.
Yep. On his way to Sector 14.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. It's been quarantined, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's the idea. No one's supposed to go in or out.
I don't know.
Well, the Centauri seem to fight a little bit more refined in their manner than the Narn. We've seen a Narn duel earlier, and now we see a Centauri duel.
Yeah. And to me, for the age of those two guys, those weapons seemed somewhat cumbersome.
As having held a sword in the past, not so much for a broader style of sword. If you're comparing it against a foil or a rapier, most certainly. What struck me as odd / annoying is, well, first of all, they really were taking swings at each other, so pay attention to the choreography. But they used scenes from different takes, and you can tell it because the state in which the edges of the weapons get chewed up varies from cut to cut, and you can't miss it.
Yeah, I just thought the swords were too big and heavy for dueling for what they were doing.
I've sparred with cavalry sabers in the back, and the whole issue of it is the balance of the blade. If the blade balance is a little more towards your arm, it's not such a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And they do a lot of nicks and cuts, but the real intent of that type of a weapon, and you see that at the end, is as a stabbing sword. Wow, scene cut again. Whatever it is, bails out of Sheridan and goes home.
So there was an entity that was possessing him and causing him to have these hallucinations.
Yep. He's got this thing about aliens borrowing parts of his brain, doesn't he?
Yeah, so it seems.
Yeah, we'll see that problem again. Well, Sheridan promptly passes out and it's kind of drifting into the danger zone. So
yeah, it's a good thing Mike's around.
I guess they weren't too close to Sector 14 because if you remember, there were some problems with time distortion in that area.
Yeah.
So
did we ever find out what this entity was?
Just ET phone home.
Okay.
But it gives us a means of updating Sheridan on the idea of Sector 14 and Babylon 4. Like I said, this is kind of sort of the B story. The real story is the relationship between Londo and Urza, who are at this point both rather cut up.
Yeah, they've scored hits on each other here and there. But nothing major yet.
No, and enough to make it. And this is another part of the reason. Urza tells Londo to let's end it.
Well, and then obviously, he's got the upper hand.
Mm-hmm.
Londo's down on the ground. Urza could have finished him right there.
Very quickly.
But he waited and then let us end it. And then that gave Londo time to pick up his weapon.
Right.
and kill and stab Urza before before Urza could deliver the final blow.
Yeah, so Londo ends it. Honor's saved, and Urza's family, we understand, is saved.
Right. Urza won that fight.
That's what he promises. Well, like Londo tells Veer later, Urza could have killed him any time he wanted to in the fight. With those particular weapons.
Yeah.
At least.
So Urza committed suicide a la Londo.
Mm-hmm. Or by honor. Yeah. And starting to wrap things up, to answer your question about Sheridan, he was just toting some life form home that apparently got pulled over from the distortion, the event that ripped Babylon 4 out of space and time. And that he was just seeing what it felt. And I love the way Franklin geeks out.
Oh, gosh. I don't even remember what he said because he was just blah, 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 blah.
I know. Same here.
And really what he did say didn't have a great deal of meaning as far as I was concerned anyway.
No, like I said, best just left as a geek out.
Now,
yes.
My question is the episode is called Knives. Okay. Usually in some way or another, whether there's an A story and a B story or an A, B, and C story, usually they all tie into the title somehow. How do you suppose this Sheridan thing tied into the title Knives? It didn't, I'm coming up with a blank.
I don't think the Sheridan side did at all.
Okay.
I think it was entirely the Urza Londo story.
Oh yeah. There was a lot more sharp edges to that than just the sword fight too.
Exactly. Yep. And as far as the sword fight, Londo makes it clear in his discussion with Veer that the fight with Urza was for show. It was to protect Urza's family.
Mm-hmm.
And we're finally getting to a point where Londo is starting to see the price of his choices.
Yeah.
Do you have that last speech of Londo's?
I have made many choices lately, Veer. And today, for the first time, I'm not sure those choices were right.
Perhaps some good has come out of this tragedy. It's not too late to make some new choices.
No. The blood is already on my hands. Right or wrong, I must follow the path to its end.
But Londo...
You can go now, Veer. I want to sleep. If I can.
Short, simple, but very powerful closing moment.
Yeah. And, here's Londo. I made some bad choices. And Veer's like, well, make other choices then. So what do you think? Is Londo in too deep?
No. This is the optimist in me. You always have a choice. While you still have a breath in your body, you still have a choice. And it might lead to disaster. It might not accomplish much, but you still have the choice.
Well, in Londo's mind, he's made his choice, and now he has been set upon a path that he can't turn around and go the other direction from. And
that in itself was a choice.
Well, let's think about too that Londo knows how he is going to die.
Yes.
So perhaps he sees this disaster coming, and there's going to be one following another, and his alliance with Morden and the Shadows is only gonna lead this way. We have the benefit of knowing that yes, that is the case.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as Londo's concerned,
there are many paths. There are many paths to that end. And if you've read the Legions of Fire, the Centauri trilogy, you can you see the execution of those paths.
Mm-hmm. But Londo is not gonna change his mind. He's going to continue the way he's going.
And in fact, remember in a few episodes when Majel Barrett shows up and plays Turan's wife, we'll see again. Straczynski makes it clear through her that there's always a choice,
Mm-hmm.
that he has opportunities to change his fate.
So he's choosing not to do so.
At this point, he's choosing not to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Precisely.
Which is one of the major reasons he's such a tragic figure.
Very much so. Like I said many times now, and I'll be saying it again, in reality, a whole lot of Babylon 5 is the tragedy of Londo Mollari.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that could almost be the title of it. Everything from Londo, I mean, it's not an accident that Londo's doing the opening monologue for the pilot. And then we ultimately see him at the end of the story,
Mm-hmm.
telling, when he's talking to the children, telling them their, a last story.
Yep. Well,
So I mean, it's not in the sequence of aired episodes, but in the sequence of the history, of the future history. Londo's narration is the bookends.
Yeah, it is. Well, anyway, that about takes care of Knives.
That takes care of Knives. This, folks, is why I say, on the one hand, it stands alone, but in other ways, it's definitely part of the bigger story. And one thing that's certainly true about it, this is the pause before the storm.
Yeah, there's a storm coming, a big one.
There is a huge storm coming. And in that context, Jim, what do we have coming up next week after Knives?
Our next episode is Confessions and Lamentations.
Yeah, this is a very dark episode, very powerful episode.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you bring your philosopher's cap.
All right. Well, anyway, should we take this out then?
Well, we have definitely talked this one through. Do you have any closing comments? I know this was an episode, there was not an episode in season 2 that I did not think was outstanding.
So far, yeah. They've all been good ones.
Yep, this is the 17th episode aired of the season. We've got Confessions and Lamentations next, and then Divided Loyalties, which, if you haven't seen it before, is not going to be what the events of the season have been leading up to. Long Twilight Struggle, comes the Inquisitor, one of my favorite episodes.
Uh-huh.
And then Fall of the Night. And that'll wrap up the season. And it's a very intense next 5 episodes.
It sets up the mood for the 3rd season.
Yeah. It's not a whole lot of rapid, fast-paced action, but they are deep. They're at points very disturbing. They are all intense, and the writing is brilliant. The acting is brilliant.
Yep. All the way through.
All the way through.
Well, I think we need to put this one to bed.
I agree, my friend. I agree. It has been another fun hour.
Yeah, it has.
So, no boom today, sir?
No boom today at all.
A few stabs, a few pokes, a few cuts, but no boom. But
clank, clank, clank. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't worry. There will be a boom tomorrow.
There's always a boom tomorrow.
Certainly. Good night, everyone.
So long, everybody.
Podcast terminated. Thank you for listening to the Babylon Project podcast. You can email Raul and Jim at the Babylon Project podcast at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at the Babylon Project podcast. On the internet, we are at babylonprojectpodcast.wordpress.com. To subscribe to the podcast, you can find us on iTunes, or you can subscribe to the RSS feed on the webpage.